Hi, it's Friday, and it's time for the Reiki Share. And for today, I wanted to focus primarily on heart healing. And my reason for this, I'll go into more detail as more people tune in. But before we do that, I'd like to pick an oracle card for the day. I'll go with the Goddess Oracle deck. So heart healing is actually really important, especially when the world is in the state that it currently is. Often when we are consuming too much and we're constantly looking to have our needs met by buying things and eating things and smoking things and drinking things, it's because there's something inside of us that needs to be healed, something that we're not addressing. And instead of addressing it, we numb it and we pretend that it's not there. And the more that we do this as a collective, the more we're going to use up all the resources. So I think an easier way to go about it is to actually deal with what's going on. So it so happens that I chose the grief card from the Goddess deck. And this is a really beautiful card. She's bowing to the moon. Can keep looking at that for a few minutes, and then I'm going to read what it says in the deck. So I'll put some crystal here to help you. Keep looking, and then I'll be right back. Well, I'm going to be right here. So the message of this card, let's see, grief. What's your name again? Grief. So she comes with a poem. Grief. With my head heavy with loss, my eyes blinded by tears, I wander, unable to rest, unable to find ease. I am dry, my bones are dust in the desert sun. My heart ripped out, lies broken on the ground. Each step I take in living tramples anew. Each breath I take in living raptures my wounds. How can I bear the unbearable? How can I survive the unsurmountable? Will my sorrow ever end? Will my loss ever be filled? Will my longing ever cease? How appropriate to pull this card when we're talking about heart healing and how that impacts our relationship with the earth and each other. So the meaning of this card, Kotelakue is here to help bring you face to face with your grief. She is here to tell you that there is no way around grief. There is no place you can hide from grief. The way to wholeness lies in going through your grief. Have you been afraid to face the pain that accepting grief and going through the grief process will bring? Have you been afraid? Have you been hiding from grief, pretending to be okay when you're really not? Perhaps you fear the grief is so great that you will remain in it for the rest of your life. Have you done some of your grieving, but not all of it, so that it catches you unaware in odd moments? Perhaps you are staying in a situation you need to leave, but fear the grief that leaving would engender. This is so appropriate. It is imperative for your healing process that you grieve. It is time to wail and keen and moan. It is time to ask for support from friends and family. Life is about loss, and loss is a part of life. The seasons change, and all is in a state of transition. Even grief is fully faced will finally lessen. If fully faced, will finally lessen. In time, you will feel stronger and more alive. One day, your wounds will fade to scars. Remember that the process takes as long as it needs, and it needs to take, and that everyone's time of grief is different. Kotelakue tells you to feel the grief so the healing can come. So this is incredibly appropriate for me, at least, as I address this. And you know, grief can come in lots of different forms. It doesn't need to be because someone has died. It doesn't need to be something so serious. Grief can actually be a byproduct of just the times changing. Every year we experience grief when the seasons change, when summer moves into fall, when fall moves into winter. We experience a subtle loss. You can experience grief of just, a time in your life transitioning into a different time in your life. Maybe moving, you'll experience grief. Transitioning from being in your youth to being a parent, or transitioning from being in your 20s to being in your 30s, or in your 40s into your 50s, or transitioning to having a full home into an empty nest. All of these things are grief. And if they're not fully addressed, it can just linger there forever, and we have a void inside of us that we're constantly filling, which can be quite intense. So something to think about. But moving into the Reiki Share, the primary thing that I wanted to address is how heart chakra imbalance can manifest. So we can have an imbalanced heart chakra because we're grieving and we're not addressing it, or we're grieving and we are addressing it, and we're just in this state where our heart chakra is just in pain. And your heart chakra isn't just the organ of your heart, it's the whole region that's impacted. You can see someone who's experiencing imbalance in the heart chakra by their posture. They might be hunched over. You can experience it in their energy, if they seem depressed, if they seem sad. You can experience it in how they give a hug. Is it limp? Is it exhausted? Or is it too tight and they're like, they're desperate? You can experience it in how they give, take, and receive. This is the most telling of all of the heart chakra symptoms, in my opinion. If you see people who are so willing to take and take and take, it's usually because they don't have their needs met, obviously, and it's usually emotional needs. And if you see someone giving and giving and giving, it might be because, again, they don't have their heart needs met. So a really great way to work on healing the heart chakra is to work through boundary work. So boundaries are found by knowing when to and not to give, to be able to give freely without resentments or attachments, but to also not give so much that you have nothing left for yourself. And I find this to be very interesting when we look at the earth, and we have the metaphor right now with the Amazon that the earth's lungs are on fire. The lungs of the earth are burning. And the lungs are a part of the heart chakra. And you can see people who are grieving or have a heart chakra imbalance will smoke a lot more. They will do things that impact the lungs. They'll have deep, heavy breaths. They'll sigh a lot. This shows that when we're experiencing lack of proper boundaries, it impacts our heart space. So to me, it's interesting that the heart chakra is what is being impacted on the earth, and her lungs are on fire. How do I make this association? Well, we have a bunch of people on our planet that aren't necessarily satisfied. We know they're not satisfied because we consume constantly. We're constantly looking for things to fill us up and make us feel like we have our needs met, that we belong, that we're loved, that we're doing the right thing. As a result, we're consuming constantly. Everything that we consume comes from the earth. Everything. And she can give and give and give and give and give, but she's showing on a regular basis that maybe she doesn't have enough to give anymore. So her boundaries are not being respected, and as a result, her heart chakra is being impacted. The lungs are on fire. We can see this a lot with people who have unresolved grief, who smoke constantly, and then eventually they get lung cancer. I know I've seen this with my grandmother. Just not being able to process heartaches in her life. And maybe it's not just grief, it's just sadness that hasn't fully been expressed or resolved. So as a result, what I've come to the conclusion is that the only way to truly help our our collective situation when it comes to our environment, when it comes to our relationships with each other, is to really all start to look in to our heart space, obviously, right? What hippie healer lady isn't going to tell you to do that? But this is kind of an urgent call. You can't ignore your heart anymore. You can't ignore the pain in your heart. You can't pretend that it's not there. And because the more that you do ignore it, the more that you close off to it, the more you are impacting the whole. It's no longer about you and your pain. Your pain not being resolved, not being looked at, not being healed is impacting everyone. And most importantly, it's impacting the earth that we all share. So stop consuming. How do you do this? Stop numbing. How do you do that? Stop taking. How do you do that? Well, first it starts by understanding that you already have everything you need. There's no one out there that can give you the love that you really deserve and want. You have to give it to yourself, and then you will see it reflected into the world. It seems so silly, but it's true. There's no food that is going to truly fix what is going on in your heart. You can keep consuming and eating and trying to numb it, and it will work not momentarily, but at the end of the day, really what's going to make you happy is consuming less. Your body performs so much better when you're not consuming a bunch of crap. Just high quality foods that are made in a sustainable way are actually going to make your whole body function more, and you will need so much less. Move, exercise, walk more. Walking more gets your heart to beat more, and the more your heart beats, the more you heal, the more you release what's stuck in there. And as a byproduct, you're not burning fossil fuels, you're not taking more than you need to take. Obviously, not everyone can walk to work, but you can walk more than you do right now. You can walk to the corner store, you can walk to the local grocer, you can figure out ways to do this. But what I want you to understand this week with the Reiki Share is that everything that we do is universal life force energy. We're putting our energy into things constantly. And if we continue to pretend that nothing is wrong, to pretend to be living our best lives, to pretend to be happy, when we're not, we might be fooling the world, and the world might believe us. And they might think, oh, he looks like he's doing a great job. He seems really happy. But if you're still excessively consuming, that is a byproduct of not having a balanced heart chakra. There's something in there that is out of whack, because if you're truly whole in the heart, your needs are fully met. You don't need anything. I mean, within reason. You still need to eat on occasion and drink plenty of water, but not nearly as much. And when your heart is balanced, these things will be provided for you in a way that they are not causing an imbalance for anyone else. So this is a short Reiki share. You can give yourself Reiki on your heart. Obviously, that's completely there for you. Drink green food, spend time in nature, connect with her. The earth heals your heart. She gives you everything that you need. You are a part of her, and anyone you love is a part of her. So by you working on yourself and understanding this relationship of boundaries with yourself, with others, and the earth, not only are you going to make your life a happier one, but you're also going to make a more positive impact on the collective. So that's all I have for you today. I'm sorry this wasn't actual Reiki. It's more of a rant, but a happy one, and I hope that you understand. Thank you so much. Namaste.